Hey, everybody, welcome back to the podcast. You're listening to the longest running superhero role playing game on Earth, also known as the Continuum Chronicles. As always, I'm your host, Chris Kent, the Game Master. And before we get into today's adventure, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell for notifications, and as always, be sure to leave us a comment, as that really helps us out with the YouTube algorithm. We've got a great community here, and it's all thanks to you guys. Thank you so much for being here. With all that said, let's dive in. The prologue to today's game takes place on the planet Mars, when the being that the Greeks referred to as Ares and the Romans referred to as Mars arrives on the planet that was named after him. Before the arrival of Ares, there was peace between the red Martians like Jem, the orange Martians like Doug, the yellow Martians like Brett, the green Martians like Jean, the blue Martians like Shiva, purple Martians like Martlar, and the white Martians like Ben. But Ares has an aura of war, an invisible force which urges all beings in his presence to feel an uncontrollable urge to fight and slay each other. Ares urges all he encounters to conquer their neighbors and destroy every man, woman, and child who resists. As soon as he arrived on Mars, he stirred up the spirit of war in the hearts of the Martians. Ben Blanks of the White Martians is the first to swear loyalty to Ares, as does Martler of the Purple Martian race, as do the Yellow Martians. Seeing the approaching genocide, the Red Martians flee to the planet Saturn, and in 1938, the Orange Martians flee to Earth. They land in Grover's Mill, New Jersey, and a war of the worlds takes place there. Orson Welles tries to warn Earth, but there's a panic, and the government decides people would go insane if they knew they weren't alone in the universe. So the men in black convince everyone that it was just a hoax. But unknown to the general public, a secret war rages on in the shadows between Martians on Earth, disguised as human beings. Which brings us to the main plot of today's game, which takes place in the 1940s in the region of Mars called Cydonia. Some white Martians return from Earth in their strange bioship, like the one we saw in the Young Justice animated series. The white Martians use their telepathy to fully convey to Ares how things are going on Earth. Ares is angry about a lot of things, one of which is that the spies of the Axis powers are being stopped by the American Army Intelligence Service. One of the white Martians, who is still disguised as a human being, tells Ares that Wonder Woman is assisting them. A furious Ares knows exactly who Wonder Woman is, and he orders them to destroy her immediately. By the way, this was taken directly from Wonder Woman issue number 2 from 1942. At any rate, so the White Martians say she cannot be killed or captured. They say they've tried everything. So Ares orders them to find her weakness and exploit it. They bow and return to Earth with their ship's cloaking device, preventing them from being detected by humanity. Meanwhile, in Washington, D.C., Colonel Darnell gives Steve Trevor sealed orders from high command. He hurries to the airport, and Wonder Woman catches up to Steve. She says that she has a feeling that he's flying straight into a trap, but he ignores her warning. Steve said he has to do as he's told, so Diana gives him some purple tablets that are based on the purple healing ray of the Amazons, and that Steve should take the purple Amazonian tablets if he is injured. He thanks her, and with that, his plane leaves, and Wonder Woman flies to Europe to continue fighting the Axis powers. Days pass, and our focus of the story now shifts to New York City, to the luxurious home of Lamont Cranston, better known in certain circles as the Shadow. As Cranston sleeps, his phenomenal psychic abilities allow him to see the events on Mars. Various human beings are being abducted on Earth and taken to Mars, where Ares uses them as slaves. When Cranston's remote viewing session is over, he wakes up in a cold sweat. He gets dressed and goes to Flash Gordon, who was given a spacecraft by Queen Aura of the planet Mongo. Gordon agrees to give the player characters a ride to Mars, and he joins the party. The Shadow then goes to Doc Savage, Man of Bronze. He explains the situation to him, and Doc agrees to help as well. The Green Hornet, the Phantom, the Rocketeer, and Tarzan join too. And before long, all the player characters fly to Mars. Using the same trick that Shiwan Khan used to cloak an entire hotel, the Shadow cloaks Flash Gordon's ship in such a way that only he and the other heroes can see it. The Shadow then cloaks the heroes using the illusion power. As a brief aside, this would probably be a good time for me to explain how illusion works in the DC Heroes RPG. The APs of illusion serve as OV/RVs to any perception checks made to determine whether or not an object is real. If a character saw a huge golden city in the middle of the desert where a moment ago there was none, he could make a perception check to determine whether the city was real or an illusion, which one of our players, named Eric Grosscup, pointed out meant that if they have no reason to question it, then why would they make a perception check to begin with? In other words, if you make Superman just blink into existence, they get to roll. But if you make it look like Superman flew down from the sky the way he normally would, then why would they even question it? That simple approach to the illusion power makes it work a lot better. Such is the case with what the Shadow is doing by casting the illusion of a barren desert where the ship actually is. The Martians have incredibly powerful psychic abilities, but they'd have no reason to suspect that there was a chunk of barren desert in the middle of a barren desert. So they don't get to make a perception check. Anyways, on with our story. So the Shadow can sense the location of Steve Trevor. They find him in a dungeon beneath some Martian pyramids, where he and a female orange Martian named Tiva are slaves. While here, they also find a green Martian boy by the name of Tom Johns. Tom says he can take the heroes to meet his brother, Jean, who's a soldier and a member of the rebellion. But the player characters don't know if they can trust Tom or not. The PCs learn before Ares arrived, Bromir was feared as the Martian god of fire and death, and as a result, all Martians have a strong fear of fire, to the point that it is psychosomatic. As such, all Martians have an attack vulnerability to fire, so that fire does 4 column shifts more damage to a Martian than to anyone else. They also have a loss vulnerability to fire with a range of 1 AP. So when the heroes hear what Ares does with his slaves, it gives Doc Savage an idea. That evening, Ares is in the arena of sport. With him are three quote unquote lesser gods: the Earl of Greed, the Duke of the Deception, and the Lord of Conquest. The arena looks like a twisted version of American Gladiators, but with a Roman Empire appearance. In the center of the arena are wide marble pedestals. The slaves are forced to get atop these pedestals and try to knock each other off. But the floor is of the arena is set ablaze. So the loser of each sparring match falls to his or her death. Each player character climbs a pedestal and then tells the slave next to them not to fight, that they have a plan. And the shadow, using his ability to cloud men's minds, makes it look like the player characters are all wearing the same loincloths that these poor slaves are forced to wear. Finally, the time comes and Ares tells them to fight. So the shadow pulls out his twin pistols and starts blasting the Martians who have a lost vulnerability to being within 20 feet of fire. So everyone in the front row next to the flaming arena gets a face full of lead. The Phantom does likewise, as does the Rocketeer, who then flies, which surprises the Martians because, again, the rocket pack and the pistols all have an illusion cast over them, which makes them invisible to Martian eyes. Ares is furious, so he enters the arena when others are too afraid to. After all, Ares has no vulnerability to fire. Tom Johns tells the others to run while he fights Ares with his Martian powers. So the others run, and Ares takes his time ripping Tom to shreds. But Tom's individual pieces keep fighting. A severed hand, for instance, grows a copy of Tom's face. It grabs the ankle of Ares, and the mouth on the hand's palm bites into the ankle of Ares, something we saw in Martian Manhunter Volume 2, Issue number 8. As Ares fights Tom, the abducted slaves, Doc Savage, the Green Hornet, the Rocketeer, the Shadow, Steve Trevor, Tarzan, and Tom Johns run back to Gordon's ship. Tom asks how long before Ares realizes he's fighting one of the Shadow's illusions made to look like Tom. Doc Savage says it's too hard to tell. There are too many variables. As the people of Earth board the bus-sized rocket ship that belongs to Flash Gordon, Tom tells them to go home, and he'll go get his brother Jean. With the help of the rebels, the humans should have safe passage back to their own planet. Doc Savage shakes Tom's hand, thanking him and wishing the Green Martians luck. And with that, Flash Gordon ignites the engines, and our heroes return to Earth. Which brings us to our epilogue. The Martians landed in Grover's Mill, New Jersey in 1938, which is only about an hour and a half drive north of Gotham City. So now, in the 1940s, Batman is in Jersey City, New Jersey at the U.S. Army Department headquarters. It's the middle of the night, and Batman is going through a file cabinet in the dark where he finds what he's looking for: records of troops sent to Grover's Mill in 1938, how many men were killed in action, how many rounds of ammunition were fired, all of that jazz. Just then, the door flies open and the lights come on. Batman turns and looks at the two men who just entered. "Those don't look like standard issue uniforms," Batman says in his rough voice. The two men in black point their ray guns at Batman. You're illegally trespassing on government property. Put your hands where we can see them. Batman says, those are fancy guns. I don't like guns. One of the men says, that big brain of Lex Luthor's belongs to Uncle Sam now. The other man says, hands, now. So we roll initiative, and Batman is faster. So he throws knockout gas pellets at them while putting on his gas mask and jumping out of the window with a crash. On their turn, they try to shoot him, but with all the smoke that's in the room now, they have to roll with a penalty to even see Batman. They fail. Batman gets away with the files. And that was it for that game session. We enjoyed playing it. We hope that you enjoyed hearing about it. If so, smash that like button, make sure you're subscribed, ring the bell for notifications, and as always, be sure to leave us a comment, as that really helps us out the YouTube algorithm. From everybody here at the Continuum Chronicles, we hope that you guys have a great week, and we will see you in the next adventure. Bye.